Is it starting? And we're live. It says that I'm live. We interrupt your regular scheduled Omnibros live for a special episode of Otakubros, hosted by yours truly. And I am joined by Gio from A Week in Geekdom. How's it
Hi
going?
guys. Hi everybody in the doing pretty damn well. Hi everybody in the chat and watching later on replay. Thank you so much for joining and liking and subscribing to the Omnibus Collectors Network to another fun-filled Otaku Bros episode.
And of course, we're graced by Adonis as well. What's going on, my man?
What's going on, guys? Glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to be able to string this together really quickly. Jess was not feeling great today, so he was unable to host an episode, and I decided, you know what, we're gonna take over, and we're getting in the damn channel, and we're piloting this thing, and we're doing this. So I don't we have a basic structure idea of what we want to do tonight, but there's not a lot of structure, and so we're just kind of gonna go with it and hope that it works out, and yeah, welcome to Otaku Bros. Anyway, real quick, of course, the channel is sponsored by InStockTrades.com, and as Jess usually does, I'm going to do our quick pitch and our quick ad for them. InStockTrades.com, where you can order all of your new comics for fantastically discounted prices. Many new books are up to 50% off on the first week of release. You get loyalty discounts of 2% when you roll into another your previous week and you do another order within a week. You also get a quarterly Omnibroslive discount that gives you 3% off on top of the regular discounts. And then, of course, the free shipping after $50. They do have international shipping available for higher cost. They have amazing customer service and also the fantastic packaging that makes sure that your books get to you without damage. But if somehow there's something wrong with those books, you know that Emily and the rest of the gang at InStock Trades will treat you like family and make sure that you get those books looking good. Anyway, so with that out of the way, again, welcome to Otaku Bros. Now, guys, there's been a lot of stuff going on. I know that you guys had an episode that I missed last week or so. Did y'all talk about Ava? Was that what went on last week?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes,
it was a Get in the Robot kind of episode.
Cool. So, of course, talking about Evangelion hitting YouTube, and I think everyone's been jumping on the movies and stuff. And of course, there's the Evangelion manga, and then a million different spin-off series for Evangelion, and toys and models, and clothes and shoes, and then hats and dogs. I don't know. There's everything.
Alpaca.
There's probably like food items in Japan with Asuka on the wrapper. I don't know, whatever, man. Like Ava, it's freaking good shit. But what else? Like what's been going on since? Because I know that was the hot topic as far as anime goes. In the group in Otaku's Farm, that was everyone's thing for a minute, and I even had to order the Blu-rays of the movies because I was like, shit, I forgot I don't own these, and the fourth one is coming out soon.
Yeah. You know, speaking of the fourth one, since the last episode, we had the 10-minute preview of the fourth film. I didn't see it. I'm waiting for the whole thing. But a lot of people were really hyped up about those 10 minutes.
Adonis, did you watch that? Because I didn't.
I watched the first 7 or so minutes of it, mostly because I got pretty annoyed that I had no idea what was being said, because it was in Japanese with German subtitles.
You don't speak German?
No, not anymore. Not
okay, yeah, I forgot about that. Sorry to bring it up.
Sorry.
It looks really nice though. The visuals are some of the visuals and the new direction are definitely what brings people into the rebuild movies, and it's quality. It's there. I liked it.
Yeah, I agree. The visual quality and the animation of the rebuild movies is so clean and fresh looking, and great for modern audiences. I'm not gonna say that it's any more uh, approachable than the original series is. It's at least a little easier to find, or it had been. And now that Ava is on Netflix, of course, that means everyone can watch it. Everyone and their mom can watch it instead of searching forever for torrents and bootlegs and all that stuff. Um, but it does. I actually never watched the third one, but I know that or not all of the third one. I know the third one kind of is where it really gets crazy,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
is what I kind of expect out of the series. Um, and I'm like kind of annoyed because I had the full set in a nice box of the DVDs, but one of my friends borrowed them and thought that they were his, and now he lives in Guam, so
Hmm.
and I
Wow.
see him maybe once a
That's
year, so I'm like, whatever, dude.
that's pretty
You can
far.
hang on to him. Yeah, I'm like, well, you can hang on to him. I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered. But I don't think there's been another really like big thing that people have been hyped up about since that the group's kind of just gone back in the normal, um, you know, the normal. However, there was the three different series recently started airing. Doctor Stone started up, and I think at like the same time Fire Force started up, and then of course Vinland Saga, which is available via Amazon,
Hmm.
Yeah.
is up. Now I typically don't watch anime that's based on a manga, especially one that I've already read. So I haven't watched Doctor Stone and I haven't watched Vinland Saga, but I've heard really good things about the adaptations of both, and I've heard really good things about Fire Force to the point that I feel like I need to start reading my copies of the series like ASAP.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I'm not gonna cover them on my channel, but I might as well talk about it here. I thought like Doctor Stone, like
Yeah. I know
it,
Gio really
it
likes Fire Force.
Fire Force and those three series really did an amazing job of adapting the source material, where it's very faithful to the manga, but it also has its sort of unique charm because it is animated and you can do a lot of fluid stuff. And with in the case of Fire Force, with the fighting and the
Hmm.
fire effects and all that stuff. Doctor Stone, I like because it's sort of like this deconstructed post-apocalyptic story, and the anime plays a little bit into that. The world is barely recognizable when you find out what happens, and it's sort of, yeah, it plays out like, I don't know, like a post-apocalyptic western type movie. It's odd. My description is off, but it's a wonderful adaptation. I do read the manga for both of those series, and Vinland Saga. I was going to get the books at the start of the year, but when I heard about the anime and it being a Wit Studio production, I'm like, yeah, I'll rather wait. And I'm glad I did because Wit Studio is killing it with that series. All three episodes that are out so far just look like freaking movies in television form. It's really good in my opinion.
Um, it's been a minute since I read. Well, I say it's been a minute. It's only been a few months, but I read like all 10 of the current volumes of Vinland Saga back to back to back, and it was definitely really good. Um, if anyone's unfamiliar, it's basically a Viking type story. Um, tells a story of basically a Viking kid growing up and stuff. And so there's a lot of different action, a lot of different stuff in there that's really interesting. Um, I highly recommend reading it. And I know a lot of people are kind of annoyed because the anime is only available via Amazon Prime, which kind of
Yeah.
stinks for anyone that wants to check it out but doesn't have Amazon Prime. Um, Dr. Stone, basically the idea on the series, anyone who's curious about it, was all of a sudden, inexplicably, some sort of flash of light goes across the globe and everyone turns to stone. And thousands of years later, all of a sudden, one of the people who was encapsulated in stone is able to break out. and it happens to be this genius high schooler, and he figures out how to start breaking out other people, and he decides that he wants to start society anew. So it is like this post-apocalyptic story, but it's one where it focuses not as much on, what happened. Like, a lot of zombie stories and movies are like, what happened and how did we get here, and like fighting against the zombies and stuff. It's him using his own genius and knowledge about the world to restart civilization. So as the series progresses, we see him creating various technology like weapons, and he gives glasses to a few people that he notices can't see properly, because they meet, like, brief spoiler for a little bit into the series, they meet people who are not broken out of stone, who have been there since they've been stuck in stone, so they didn't even know society as it was before. So there's a lot of that, and every time they create something, it'll be like acquired blank piece of technology, and so that's kind of it's a real different look at the apocalyptic storyline, because it's just him trying to bring back the age of science, as he says. Like, he's trying to bring back the age of science instead of taking thousands of years to develop the science to the point that we had it before. So it was a really cool series, a really different idea. As a lot of Shonen Jump titles are now, they're not the typical Shonen fighting manga anymore. So it's a very different take on that. And then I have not read Fire Force yet, but it looks super cool. I know it's the same creator as was it Soul Eater?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I haven't read that one either, but I've got half of the series at least on my shelf.
Yep.
But there's that. I know there was a couple of cool solicits that popped up, like a Junji Ito art book is coming out.
Soul Eater not finished in the U.S.?
The anime? No, the manga is definitely finished in the U.S. I just only own half of it. Because I bought the first half.
I think I have lag. The manga.
No, the manga was completed.
Okay.
All 25 volumes did release. I just only bought the first 12 from someone on one of the groups, and that's why I only own half of it. I haven't bought the rest yet. But yeah, I know there was a Junji Ito art book that was solicited, and another new solicitation that really interested me was the Transformers manga. That looked really cool. I don't recall any other big things having been solicited. There might have been a couple more new SIG or Shonen titles here and there, but I wouldn't be surprised. There
was an Asano book, but I can't remember the name right now.
That's right. I don't remember the name either, but I know there was, and it was one that Nelson was waiting on, because I remember when it was solicited, he was like, "Finally, I've been waiting for this one." So that's really exciting. I'd like to see more of his smaller works come out, because they're all really strong. But speaking of Asano, I got a new volume of Dead Demons in today. So volume 6 just hit. But there's a lot of new series that are popping up right now. I'm getting a lot of new volume 1s, and I have a lot of new volume 1s that I'm planning on getting. And one of those that's been talked about a little bit in the group has been Beastars. Just got the first volume of that in here today. I'm not aware of anything about this series, except I saw when they first solicited that it was coming to the States. I thought the cover looked really cool and the concept was cool. And then I completely forgot what the concept was until just before the show, when I was talking to Gio about it. And I was like, yeah, this is what the back says. But basically, there's an academy with a bunch of anthropomorphic animal people things. And there are the carnivores and the herbivores. And one of the herbivores comes up murdered, and they assume that it's one of the carnivores, and so there's kind of an investigation going into it, and different relationships between the different characters, yada yada yada. The wolf on the cover is the one that is pinned, or the murder is pinned on, so they believe that it's him because it's in his nature. So Gio pointed out, kind of very like a mature version of Zootopia in a way, if anyone saw that movie. I know a lot of people did. So that was pretty much spot on. But I've heard nothing but really great things about it, so I'm super excited to read it. I do want to point out the artwork is not very manga-esque. I'm going to find a good page here, but it kind of reminds me of Euro comics and stuff in the way it's drawn. It's not drawn the typical in a typical looking manga style at all. So that's really interesting to me. But Gio and I were talking earlier about the fact that there's an anime adaptation coming out, and the anime takes more of a clean, crisp manga-looking approach. So I haven't read it yet because, like I said, I just got the box in with this volume, so I will be reading it soon, and I'm excited to see what it's like, so that I can let everyone know whether or not to buy it. Probably let people know yes to buy it. I think that's. I got a few other books as well, Fire Punch, and of course the group's favorite, Grand Blue. And then I got 2 volumes of Battle Angel Alita. Volume 17 is with this nice little color coding across the bottom, so it was very much misaligned when it was printed. So that's nice, but you can't win them all. Anyway, so that's what I got. Was there any other new stuff that happened? Any other news, new books that are coming out or anything?
I think you covered them all. Like all the big solicits and stuff. I think you covered most of them. There was a couple of books, but I can't remember their names. I'm trying to look online.
I think there was like a shoujo book. There was some shoujo book that I remember getting solicited recently that had a very typical looking shoujo style to it. So probably not my thing. But I don't know. There might have been a couple of other things. I'm not exactly sure. But the thing that we were kind of wanting to talk about tonight was everyone's favorite long-running pirate series, One Piece. Now, Gio said that we were, this was going to be a plan for us to cover the series at some point. We've been talking about it in our Otakubros chat about talking about One Piece, so we wanted to talk about that series, at least the first arc, the East Blue arc, which is the first 12 or so volumes of the series. Now, of course, this is a really long-running title. It's in the US, we have 90 volumes. In Japan, there's 92, 93 volumes, 900 some odd chapters. Definitely looking to get to 1,000 or further at some point. And I think that's around where Oda, the creator, has stated he plans on concluding, is somewhere just a little past 1,000 chapters and a little past 100 volumes. That's what he's stated before. Of course, he stated a lot of things in the past, so it's not easy to always trust what he's saying, but we'll see what happens in the next few years. But the series has been going on for, what does that make, over 20 years or something? I think, did it celebrate a 20th anniversary recently?
The anime is celebrating the 20th anniversary.
Which means that manga probably recently celebrated 20 years.
I think it came out 1997, was it? 97?
Okay, so a little bit more than 20 years of One Piece, which is a lot. Obviously, I mean, there's not a ton of series going that have been around that long. We've got JoJo, of course, has been around longer than that. And then there was the Kochikame series, but that wrapped up recently, but that was around longer than One Piece. But there's not a lot of currently ongoing series. Hajime no Ippo, of course, is longer than One Piece, but it's not exactly super duper common to see a series last to almost 100 volumes. Bleach and Naruto both wrapped up in the 70s. So that's already a solid chunk of 20 volumes less. And there's a reason why it's persisted for so long. It's such a popular series because I think that it's done really well to grow with its audience, both with the audience that started reading it back in the day and growing with the expectations of a new audience that might be looking to get into it, and giving newer generations something that looks enticing if you're of the group of kids who are already reading the other stuff that might be in Jump, or a fan of more recent titles like My Hero Academia. He really does well to keep up with appearances and styles and trends and stuff to appeal to newer fans. And that's why the series, I think, persists to this day, is because it does well to keep its old fans who have been with the series for forever, but also pull in new fans by being like, hey, don't be too scared by the number of chapters I got.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to comfort you every bit of the way, and you're going to be happy you caught up. Now, I've been reading One Piece for a good amount of time. I think both of you guys got in kind of in the recent past. So I wanted to ask, what was it like jumping into it when it's already got so much material?
I made I'm going to try and summarize it. I made a video on my channel about how I got into One Piece, and basically, I've never been one to read a lot of manga. It wasn't until I joined the different groups and started YouTube and all that stuff where I really went like hardcore into the manga side of things. I've always been a fan of animation in general. That's my preferred movie and TV genre. And when One Piece debuted with 4Kids back in 2003, I think 2002, somewhere at the beginning of the 2000s, I really dug it. I knew that it was a horrible dub, and two, the censorship was all over the place. It was terrible. But I did enjoy the fact that it was about pirates. It was in the ocean, and had a wonderful, eccentric looking cast. The animation was very wacky looking. It reminded me of like old 70s and 80s cartoons with their exaggerated expressions and all that stuff. And it wasn't until I joined, until we formed the farm group, where everybody was, one of the first things that we hyped in that group was One Piece. And I said, you know what? I want to give it a shot because I had watched like 200 episodes of the anime, and I liked it, but I didn't like it. I didn't quite love it yet. And you guys kept pushing me to try it and go at it from a different perspective. And I looked online, and the art in the manga always looked really great, really kinetic and wonderful looking. So I gave the 3-in-1 volumes a shot, and I'm currently reading those as of this moment. But yeah, my One Piece manga journey began last year. But usually, I would say I've seen like 200, 300 episodes of the anime, so I knew the story. Now I'm reading it, or experiencing the story once again. And I gotta say, I much prefer the manga over the long-running show, in my opinion.
I think the anime is guilty of a lot of shonen anime are guilty of this, but just padding out material so much to where something that, for instance, Dragon Ball Z has so many episodes, but it's really not that long. If you only take Z, it's only like 26 volumes long. And they pad it out not just with like filler arcs and episodes, but like lengthening scenes and stuff. And I feel like One Piece is guilty of that because they're trying to not have to put so much filler as far as filler episodes go, but the anime is constantly nudging right up to the manga. And that's just coming from only having watched a little bit of the anime, but kind of seeing what episode the anime is on when looking at what, how far ahead we are in the manga. And it's usually surprisingly not far behind. Adonis, I think it was it about a year ago that you binged all of the manga in like 1 month?
Yeah, it was last June. So
That's what I thought. So that obviously you were enthralled with the series pretty quickly because, like I said, you went through the whole shebang in 1 month. So how how was that? Like, what brought you onto it at first, and what kept you there?
It was so I watched it as a kid, and I didn't think the anime was anything special as a kid. I preferred Naruto. I'm assuming mostly because Naruto was about kids that were my age. But then I came back to it last year, thanks to mostly to the group, and I started out with I got 36 volumes worth on Reddit for like $50. Um, so I started that, and then as soon as I realized how fast I was going through the series, I bought a whole bunch of it at a sale at one of the comic book stores around me, and then I just started. Once I caught up to the physical volumes that were out, I just picked up picked it up on my tablet and I just ran with it. I'm a couple chapters behind now, but that's mostly to have a substantial amount to read before I continue.
I feel you. Yeah, I do the same thing. I'm probably like a good half year behind on the manga releases, but it's always fun to be able to jump in and have a good chunk of material instead of just chapter by chapter. Now, the anime or the manga, and I guess the anime too, it's divided very clearly into big parts, and I can, until later on, it's very easily divided into chunks of about 100 chapters, and each chunk is like one big arc with a bunch of smaller arcs in between, and then after that you get another big arc with a bunch of smaller arcs in between, and then another big arc. So it's like there's this grand idea about every 2 years or so with the series, and it flows through, and then you get to a stopping point, and then there's another big grand thing that happens. So the first big arc was the East Blue arc, and East Blue refers to the hemisphere of the world in One Piece. In the world of One Piece, you have your globe is divided into the 4 hemispheres by the Grand Line, which is a line of water that goes around the globe, and it's what is there, like there's like some sort of stream that kind of keeps it contained around this one line, and then there's a bunch of islands around that line, and then the other one dividing the other way is the Red Line, which is a big line of landmass. So this divides into the quarters of, or the 4 hemispheres of the Earth: North, South, East, and West Blue. So East Blue is where our protagonists come from at the beginning of the series, where we meet Luffy, Monkey D. Luffy, the main character, and then he starts assembling his crew of Roronoa Zoro, or Zolo in the English adaptation, Nami, Usopp, Sanji, and I think that's all that you get in the first part, because you don't get to anyone else until later. But you get a good chunk of the crew in the East Blue, and this is kind of like the small islands and the small pirates that they're facing off against, because Luffy has this idea that he wants to be the pirate king. He wants to follow after the legendary Gold Roger, to find his treasure that he says he left in One Piece on the final island of the Grand Line called Raftel. So Luffy is trying to gain his crew. He's trying to go through the East Blue so he can get to this one specific point where he can jump into the Grand Line, and you have to go all the way around to get there. So that's the basic idea behind the series. So East Blue is a solid 100+ issues of basically exposition, and I know that the series actually loses a lot of readers and viewers in that first chunk of material. What do you guys think about that? Like, was it something where you almost fell off, or what would you say to someone who's finding it hard to get in, like wants to get into it but is finding it hard to get through the East Blue?
I'll go first, I guess.
Sure.
I at first I thought that One Piece, like I said, it had very exaggerated characters, and for new fans, don't let that fool you, because what you're treated with is a masterful class of world building and exposition from Oda, in that every single thing that he lays out not only does it come into play later on, but you get the grand scheme. You get the sense of adventure. Like it's not just like a random island. This island serves a purpose, and it's connected via something. And then this other character joins in, and he's famous for doing something else, and it just keeps escalating. And I think he does a really good job of guiding you bit by bit as the story snowballs into something a little bit more exciting and complex. And obviously you get more crewmates because Luffy wants to be king of the pirates and he wants to build a solid crew. So you get to know all the characters in very interesting character arcs, from Usopp and everybody else. And so I thought, going in, I thought I was going to be scared because it's such a large series, but it's fun. It's very simple to read, and before you know it, you get swept by this riveting adventure that I think it's great. It has lasted for more than 20 years and it's beloved worldwide. So I do think people are in for a treat if they give it a shot. If you look past the silliness, quote unquote, you'll find something very endearing in One Piece.
I think that your comment about basically about how he introduces things that come back later, I think that's a really important part about how Oda makes this feel real, almost
Connected.
like
It feels like it's its own. So I feel like there's lots of comics, manga, movies, whatever, where it feels like you're watching a show,
yeah.
where it feels like you're watching things happen. Here, you feel like more than anything, it feels like you're experiencing, because a big part of what Oda does is he introduces newspapers, wherein you see characters that the Straw Hats have encountered, and um, reading through their exploits through newspapers. So you're kind of like watching them change the world along with everybody else in this world, and they do some really crazy stuff.
Which
Um,
it helps to that kind of stuff is really what helps to make it feel like these characters are important. Like they have lives, they live their own lives, not just the characters you're following. Because a lot of series, they focus on just the core group of characters that you're following. A lot of other characters appear for like one story and then they disappear, and it's like you might be lucky if you see those characters again. But in One Piece, you can pretty much count on seeing every character return at some point. And like you were saying, like they're affecting the world and they're doing stuff. And there's moments in the series where a character that might have not appeared for hundreds of chapters has been doing something along the way. You might have seen hints at what they've been doing, or maybe you haven't. And then they come back in a big way to affect the characters again on what like the main characters are doing. And it just goes to show that like this is a living, breathing world that's not contained just to this core group of 10 or so characters. It's huge and endlessly expansive, and you're constantly meeting new people and constantly learning these backstories and how who they are, what they've done, what they want to do, what they're going to do, motivations and all that stuff. And it feels so big and organic. And that's, I think, probably one of the biggest things that I love about this series, and why it's constantly something that I'm excited to be reading, is because it pays off. Like being a fan and reading so much material and following it along in each arc, it winds up feeling like you get so much payoff when you see like what happens with all these different characters.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly the word I would use, is payoff. Like seeing, like, I consumed most of One Piece in such a short amount of time that everything 60 volumes in was literally only like 2 weeks ago in my mind. Like, by the time I got to volume 60, all these plot lines start to connect, and they blow up in your face, and you're left feeling like, wow, literally every piece of information that Oda had been, even no matter how small it looked, it somehow will carry over. Eventually, there's a couple there's like a couple chapters. I want to say like about 36 or so, where the cover of that chapter tells a small piece of a story, and it follows Luffy's older brother Ace while he's like looking for somebody. So it starts, and you're like, oh, that's funny. That's a little gag, What a cute little cover. And then the next part is like, Ace's journey continues. This time he finds so and so, and by the time you get to a certain chapter, he the next that specific chapter focuses on Ace, and it's the follow up to all those covers, and it's like, okay, so all those covers actually mattered, and now I'm seeing the fruit of Oda takes no time. Goes back to what Ryley said of it feels like its own living, breathing world where characters are doing things off screen that will still affect everything that happens in the main story.
I think focusing on that, the word I used and that you went on with the payoff is a big thing that a lot of series fans feel like they don't receive that same payoff, and that's where a lot of I think a lot of series people fall off with, because they feel like it doesn't seem like you're seeing that payoff. And I know that One Piece is not concluded yet, and as we were like, hey, what's up?
There's the boy.
Hey. Is your shirt actually purple, or does it just look purple?
No, it just looks purple. I don't know why.
Ooh,
Hey.
nice.
So we're talking about how much of payoff there is in reading One Piece, and I was mentioning a lot of fans will not feel like the series that they watch or read have that kind of payoff. And even though One Piece is not concluded yet, it's impressive to see 90 plus volumes in that you're still feeling payoff when you're reading new chapters and new arcs and stuff, because you're seeing elements of old stuff come together. No, I don't know, Nelson. I don't actually remember how far you've read.
I actually started the manga fairly recently, maybe several months ago, but I've been doing it on my own pace. So I did finish East Blue. I'm into Baroque Works right now, but I watched the anime past that.
Okay, awesome. So, with everyone here talking about East Blue in particular, what is everyone's favorite part, like favorite smaller arc of East Blue? Gio, what was your favorite part?
I am inclined to say Chopper's origin, but I think the most satisfying on an emotional level would be Nami's story with the shark people. I forgot the name.
Yeah.
What was the name of the bad guy?
Arlong's Park.
Arlong.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think Chopper was in Baroque Works.
Yeah, Chopper is actually in the beginning of the Baroque Works. Like,
yeah, I haven't even gotten to that yet in Baroque Works.
Oops, sorry.
No. I mean, I watched the anime, so I'm good. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Adonis, which arc was your favorite, do you think? If he's there.
He looks like his dad, Joe. I don't know if he's there or not.
Arlong Park.
Okay, that's two for Arlong Park.
But my favorite, my favorite scene though, has to be when it's when they first meet Usopp, and I think it's Zoro was yelling at Nami to help him climb up the cliff because it's covered in something, and he just keeps on. He makes it up, and then he falls and he slides, and Oda takes like 2 pages to just show this little gag of him running up the cliff and then almost making it, and he just slides back down, and it was just in its serious moments, and it does it very well.
And Nelson, is yours also going to be Arlong Park?
I mean, come on.
It's hard.
It has like such a powerful moment in it, and that's when things really get serious, and you really get a taste for One Piece, and you're like, this is it.
I think that's absolutely true, because this is like each small arc gives you kind of the origin of one of the characters, but Nami's already been with Luffy almost since the beginning of the series at that point. And I know that's only about 10 volumes in, but you're seeing that aforementioned payoff already, where you've had Nami along with you for a while. You really don't know that much about her, and then when you get to Arlong Park, you learn so much, and there's a lot of emotional resonance in there. So it's definitely easy to see why anyone would say Arlong Park, and I feel like that might be a spot where a lot of people would actually start to fall for the series.
Absolutely.
I would agree with everything there, with Arlong Park being the best, but I think that the most fun villain from the East Blue has to be Buggy. And
Buggy's awesome.
I might
Buggy's
just
great.
be like, because back when I first started reading the series, there was only 2 paperbacks out, and the second paperback is like where he meets and fights Buggy. So I read both volumes like on a plane going to New York. So I just have those memories of like meeting Buggy and thinking like, these characters, Luffy and Buggy, and mind you, I was probably like 12 or 13 at the time. I'm like, these are the coolest freaking characters ever. Like I had such a fun reaction. I was like, Luffy's just so goofy and fun, and like I want to see what he does, because he wants to be this leader, but he doesn't seem like the leader type of character. And then Buggy is just this goofy, crass clown who like, and I loved the way that Luffy wound up defeating Buggy, and then Buggy was one of those payoff characters that you see like his evolution throughout the series, and I feel like he's almost like this antithesis of Luffy throughout his journey through the series.
He even gets his own arc with his own covers telling his own story, and they actually like almost are not parallel, but they're almost contrast of what Luffy's going through, like you said.
Yeah,
like, on that issue, like there will be some sort of parallel. Oh, it's really cool.
I love Buggy. I think that he's one of the most fascinating characters. He's so much fun. He's interesting, and he's still fun and cool and interesting 90 volumes later. Like that's why I love him. But as far as the emotional resonance goes, I think Arlong Park beats it out of the park. No pun intended. I didn't think that Arlong himself was the most interesting villain, but I think that we got to see a lot more with Arlong's connections to the bigger universe later on, which made him and the Fishmen a lot more interesting to me. But damn it if I didn't love Buggy.
I think he might give like the wrong impression when people start the series at first, but at the same time, it does set people up for that kind of insanity and silly shenanigans that sometimes do partake. But I feel like for some people it might turn them off because they're like, oh, what is this, a clown? Like the clown in One Piece now? But people got to give him more of a chance than that.
I think it gives you a good primer for like the just ridiculous types of stuff, because even when the series gets more serious, like the characters and their designs and the concepts behind them can become so ridiculous.
Yeah,
like,
so silly.
All the way through. Like
actually, Baroque works.
Baroque works. Those characters are cool.
They're really cool.
Straight up. Mr. 2 is goofy, but most of those characters are super cool.
No, they have such interesting designs.
Oh, yeah. And that's one of the, like...
maybe next to JoJo's might be some of the most interesting designs I've seen.
Yeah, and Powers.
And Powers, yeah. Like, Buggy's power by itself is really cool. Like, I've never seen that before. Like, it's so hard to come up with a unique power nowadays, and I mean, I know obviously One Piece was done in like, what, 97, I think? But still, like, that's a really unique power.
It's like, because you have...
We're talking about Buggy can technically than One Piece.
Oh, he's older than One Piece?
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing something about that in one of Oda's letters.
I was going to mention that, like, because you said next to JoJo's that it's probably got the most interesting, like, character designs and powers and stuff. And those are both series that, like, a lot of what intrigues me about them is based on, like, what kind of abilities you see come out of these characters. And early in One Piece, he definitely hits the ground running by introducing you to, it's like, look, here's a rubber guy. Here's a clown who can, like, chop his body into pieces. Here's, you know, a guy that uses 3 swords for some reason. One of them's in his mouth. Who can do that? I don't know. Zoro can, apparently. And then, like, you just, every arc, you get these interesting characters with different ideas behind them, and it just paints this world, this weird world. And then once you get from the East Blue and boom, right into the Grand Line, and you get to the Baroque Works arc, it just it explodes in the expansion of these characters and the types of characters you can expect. And it goes from being like, these are just the goofy little pirates and people that you encountered before you even got there, before you got to the Grand Line, and they give you the littlest taste by introducing Mihawk in the Dawn arc.
I was just gonna mention that. Like, that's when you first realize, like, and if you don't know how long the series is at first, you might be like, oh, Endgame. But no, not Endgame yet.
Yeah, it's because you get that little taste with one of, like, the most powerful characters in the series showing up like 50, 60 chapters in, and just gone after that, like putting one of the main characters in his place, basically. And then you get to the Grand Line, and you're like, oh shit, like, these are all way, like, bigger, crazier, more powerful, more interesting characters than anything that we've seen before. And the series just continues to expand further and further and further. But it sticks to its goofy ass roots, because even when you go towards, like, the more recent arcs, if you go Big Mom's arc, it's all, like, characters based around, like, confectionery things. And you literally, like, will have, like, chocolate people and, like, candy people and a guy that looks like an egg and stuff. And it's like, you have all these crazy, serious, interesting, badass looking design characters, and then you have these really goofy characters. And a lot of times the goofiest characters are the ones that have the coolest abilities too. So it winds up being really interesting on both sides. But Oda just doesn't forget his roots, basically. He continues to make this series just batshit insane with every arc, but somehow still makes it interesting, endearing, and serious when it needs to be, you know? So what else about
I mean,
what else?
Did you guys like Usopp at
did
first?
we all like?
Do what?
Did you guys like Usopp at first? I feel like he's kind of a divisive character until people warm up to him.
I still don't know if I like Usopp.
Me neither. I mean, I like him on a surface level, but I'm not in love with him.
I got real quick the fact that he's supposed to be
on the I'm lagging really bad, so I'm gonna let you go.
try to reboot and see if it works again. But yeah, Usopp. At first, he did get a little bit annoying, especially when you listen to him on the animated series. But I got the sense that, you know, he is supposed to be this comedic relief and represents sort of like the fear in the group, fear of failure and the nervousness and anxiety of what these characters are trying to do. So in my head, most of the Straw Hats, like, they represent a certain theme or for the human condition, if you will. I've always seen it like that. And Usopp, you know, he just filled that gap of comedic relief. Sometimes he's a little bit annoying, but I like him. I get him. And you do get his origin story, which was probably the shortest out of everybody. But it's really good. It's really fun and kind of
a really good villain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoyed that, especially with the I thought it was Michael Jackson, but turns out he's based on Jesus, the singer from Aerosmith. I forgot his name.
Steven Tyler.
Steven Tyler. Yeah, he's supposed to be modeled after Steven Tyler.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Django, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a funky little arc, I thought. And Usopp, yeah, he's pretty cool. I like him. Regardless.
That's a good point.
I think
100%. Like the everyman character.
Yeah, I think 100% I get what you're saying there, because, like, when you look at him compared to all these other characters, like, they're so powerful, and even, like, the ones without abilities or without like the same types of abilities, like Nami, she's extremely intelligent and knows like so much about her craft as far as like being a navigator for the ship and stuff. And then you have like, Sanji doesn't have a fruit ability, but he has a very interesting and very like, he's very powerful even though he's not a fruit user. Zoro is the same way, and he's got interesting sword techniques, but like Sanji always was kind of like to the side. Like if there was that power creep of every other character, Sanji was usually left behind, but he does feel the most human out of all of them. Like he maintains that humanity that can sometimes be really important in a story like this. And I think maybe sometimes when I'm like, I don't know how I feel about him, or I don't know if I really like him, it's because I'm like, damn, I've seen so much like progress for all these other characters. Like, I don't know what they're gonna, how can like Oda ever put Sanji in a point where, or sorry, Sanji, Usopp in a point where he can fight at the same level as like the tier 1 members of the Straw Hat crew.
I mean, does Nami ever get very good as a fighter?
Yeah.
As a fighter, not so much as the like the others, like Luffy and Zoro. Like,
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but nothing compares to them when it comes to that.
Well, you have to
maybe
think about
Sanji.
Nami gets she gets a weapon.
She gets a climb attack.
Yeah, she gets a weapon when that's not, and it's probably not. She's probably not as skilled at using it as Zoro is after dedicating his entire life to
Right.
3 sword style. But she still holds. I think she holds her weight more often than Usopp does. I think Usopp.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, she absolutely does. Yeah, she's a more than capable fighter. More than Usopp for probably for a long time.
He gets very lucky, even post power up. When he gets very muscular, he gets jacked, but his personality doesn't change whatsoever. That's the one thing that's consistent about all these characters, is that they are who they are through and through.
Right. Yeah, and half of them are pretty goofy. Because you always get like, I feel like the story will split the characters sometimes, where you have like Luffy and Usopp and Chopper are together because they're like the goofy ones, and they're the ones that like will have the same sort of like comedic reactions to stuff, while like the others, especially having like Zoro and Sanji, are typically like the more serious ones, unless Sanji is met with a female character, pretty much any female character.
That is rendered useless.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, usually characters that fall into that trope, like Sanji is, like, Brock from Pokemon, or fucking Grapehead from My Hero Academia. Like, I'm like, freaking come on. But like, Sanji has so much more behind him that like I'm always interested in seeing, what happens with him, even though I know like he has that stupid trope behind him.
It's never distasteful, at least so far that I haven't seen.
It can get pretty weird, but at the same time, he was also created back in the 90s.
Right.
And even back then, for the trope that he was still pretty mild
compared to a lot of others.
Especially compared to Brook nowadays. Brook also plays that trope, but he is like a lot creepier than Sanji about it.
Yeah, I think he's at least not in like the Master Roshi level of like, pervert dude.
Yeah,
he's not even a Mineta level.
But
Mineta? No.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah, I forgot his freaking name because I don't even care about this shit. Worst character in the goddamn series.
Yeah, everyone does like them.
I think, didn't one person like Grapehead, shithead?
I don't hate him as much anymore because I realize, hey, this is a 15-year-old. A lot of 15-year-olds are like that, but
Yeah.
at the same time, a little distasteful.
Anyway, One Piece, great series. East Blue, a lot of fun. I think like the series at this point, especially in the States, has almost this cult-like status because you have people who are like, if you're outside of the cult of One Piece, if I was to call it that, it's like you watch these people who almost seem mindless, like constantly recommending it. It's the same way for JoJo's. Like it's a long-running series that's just insane and very
that's a very
daunting
good
to
point.
get into. And it's this very cult-like following where people are like, trust me, it's good. Trust me, it's good. And it's fine if you don't like it. It's absolutely fine if you don't like it because it's so daunting to get into it, and it does take a little bit of time to really get to the point where a lot of people would, fall in love with it. But trust me, it's good.
Absolutely read it.
I would say
It
over
reads
watching
fast too.
it reads way faster. I mentioned earlier about how they definitely expand on things to kind of draw out episodes. Read it if you are curious at all. Read it. It's available if you do the Shonen Jump app, which is like a couple bucks for. Is it a couple bucks a month or something?
Yeah, $2.
$2.
Yeah, $2 a month. You have access to the whole series, so you don't have to worry about making a financial investment, which a lot of people will like. I think that affects your view of it. Is if you buy the first box set and you read the first half and you're like, yeah, I'm not really digging it, then that kind of is going to affect you more if you're thinking about it in the term of like, I spent $100 on this. But if you're only spending $2 a month, you allow yourself to read at your own pace the East Blue arc, get to know these characters. I think more people would be more interested in the series like that and getting introduced to it that. And you can read it a lot faster than you can watch it. It's a lot better of a manga, I think, than any of the anime that I had seen. And it's definitely, if you're a fan of shonen titles. If you're not a fan of shonen manga, then obviously don't even bother. But if you're a fan of shonen stuff like Naruto and Bleach and Dragon Ball and stuff, this is definitely a series that you deserve to at least give a chance.
I think especially from the art standpoint, it's a lot stronger than a lot of other shonens.
Which is funny because I know a lot of people will look at it and see like Luffy's exaggerated crying faces and stuff and like all the comedic moments and judge the art based on that. But there are so many things that Oda is so detail oriented with his work. Like there's so many just exhaustingly impressive images from throughout the series. I know like there's this one shot from the Water 7 arc where they see Water 7 and just how detailed everything is. Or like whenever Robin, for instance, uses some of her abilities with the Hane Hane fruit and it's like wings made of arms. Like it's so detail oriented. And it's just beautiful. It's just really impressive and stuff. So don't judge based on the silliest things, because that's like allowing yourself to judge Full Metal Alchemist based on the times when she draws Alphonse as the little like caricature. Yeah. That's like looking at that and being like, that's horrible art, then that means Full Metal Alchemist has crappy art. It's the same kind of type of idea. There's definitely a lot more of the goofy artwork and stuff in One Piece than Chibi Alphonse in FMA, but don't just judge it on Luffy having a big ass mouth. He's a rubber man, for Christ's sake.
Exactly. By the way, did we
big part of what
mention? Yeah, go ahead.
No, your turn.
No, I was gonna ask if we talked about Shanks, because he's pretty important too.
I completely
Someone
forgot.
did bring him up in chat.
Yeah, Shanks. So Shanks is Luffy's kind of mentor character and his inspiration in a way. Yeah, his dad. And I think Shanks was a really good, from the very start, the introduction of a character that you expect to have like this really high level of experience and of power and stuff, and then they further extrapolate on that type of stuff by introducing us to like Mihawk and stuff like that. But and Shanks is another great character that you get to see literally through almost every step of the series, his evolution as a character and seeing how he moves forward while Luffy moves forward, and seeing like who he actually is and how they expand on his place in the One Piece universe, or the One Piece world, I guess.
I Yeah, I mean, and this is just like a mild spoiler. He does become like that figure that is just constantly out of reach. Whereas, we really don't know much about him besides the fact that he is like the most badass character in the series because he's so mysterious. Like we don't know anything about whether he has any powers. He in the manga. I think the very first chapter of the manga is that where we meet him, or is that at the very first chapter?
I think so.
Romance Dawn?
I'm pretty sure.
Or does it depend?
I'm pretty sure it's like right at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's Luffy's a kid and he's on Shanks's ship.
Yeah. So.
And from the beginning, he's like, "I want to be a pirate like you."
Yep, and he cuts himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Also,
Roman, not Roman. Son, East Blue comes and goes. Most of these, like if after. I was just say East Blue, like he remains his arm to save a child.
I wanted to ask before we end the discussion. Did we talk about the world government and the gum gum fruits? Because I think those are pretty important details too in this at the start of the series too.
Now the gum gums I know like pretty much immediately, because the devil fruits are the things that are like the main thing that gives people abilities in the series. So Luffy eats the gum gum fruit, Buggy eats the chop chop fruit, and there's a lot of different ones that are shown throughout the series, and people who have abilities, typically they come from those things. So when you have people and you're like they're abilities user, they're not an ability user, that's what they mean, is like someone who's had a devil fruit. But the thing is, you gain an ability, but at the same time, you are no longer able to swim. Someone who has eaten a devil fruit will sink to the bottom of the ocean if they get into the water. So it's something where there's so many pirates out there who have taken that risk for power so that they can try and become the king or try and reach whatever goals that they have. But if they fall in the water, they fall off their boat, they're going to drown. But was the world government from the very beginning? Because I didn't remember them being there at the very beginning.
They showed up in Sanji's arc a little bit. At least the Navy did.
And in the
they're one of the first bad guys that Luffy fights when he
with the Marines and stuff.
Yeah.
Zoro. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Because right towards the beginning, because that's the opposite power when you have at the beginning of the series, you have the pirates and then you have the world government, and the world government is made up of a lot of different things. But from the beginning, the main thing that you see is the Marines. So it's basically the police of this world. But the pirates, of course, are acting against them. So the world government is, even though they are supposed to be, I guess in this world they would be the good guys, and the pirates are supposed to be the bad guys. In the way that we're reading the series, the pirates are the good guys and the world government are the antagonists, and often they're brutalizing the pirates and stuff, and taking them prisoner and doing all this stuff and using their own abilities violently against the pirates and stuff. And you even see them very soon in the Baroque Works arc. I think that's where you're introduced to the Shichibukai, the 7 emperors or the 7 warlords who are former very powerful pirates that the world government has paid to be on their, basically they're on the world government payroll. So they're not against doing shady dealings with pirates and stuff to stop and hold peace, I guess, across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
But they're definitely interesting. It's interesting because we see a lot of different characters who climb up the ranks throughout the series, from the smallest, cabin boys, all the way up to the highest ranking, admirals and stuff. And they have their own power structures and stuff, and fruit users and all that kind of stuff throughout their ranks as well. So there's a lot of interesting things happening with the world government.
It's kind of interesting that we're following characters that are technically criminals. I think that kind of sets it apart a little bit from other shonens, because you kind of have to, at least as a kid, if you're reading it, you might like wrestle with some of your, I guess, morality, because you're like thinking, oh, these guys are criminals, but then you're also thinking like, oh, but they're not really doing anything wrong.
Up to a certain point, though, because
up to a certain point. I mean, they do shenanigans, but in that world, in the grand scheme of things, it's not really anything too bad.
I mean, that's the thing, though. It's like the main characters we follow are just out for treasure, and the fact that they're opposing the world government isn't because they're looking to take down the government. It's because the government is just in his way, and I think that's where the fun part about Luffy's morality comes into play, because he didn't wake up one morning and say, I want to just destroy the world. I want to destroy the world government. He woke up one morning and said, I want to find that treasure and be the king, and whoever gets in my way is, they're done. So he's not a bad guy, but he has done bad things, but not for the sake of doing something bad. But more often than not, he will end up doing a good thing.
Yeah, whereas there are pirates who are, because like you have Luffy go up against bad pirates. You have, for instance, Blackbeard and his crew, who are introduced a little bit later in the series. That is a very major antagonist, and there are a lot of other antagonizing pirate crews, and sometimes they're after the same thing that Luffy is after, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's that they are negatively affecting a certain community of people, like Arlong and his crew, affecting the people on the island and stuff. And Luffy comes in and he has that sense of morality where even though he is a pirate, his goals don't mean that he has to act like that. So he hangs on to his own morality, and he decides that he's going to effectively take down the antagonizing pirate crews to protect innocent people. But the government, however, unfortunately doesn't see it that way, and they see any pirate as a negative force against them and against the balance of peace in the world. So they wind up learning about any sort of fights and stuff between pirate crews, and even though Luffy might be trying to use his power and his ability to save people and save communities and stuff, they're still going to treat him like he's a criminal, because all they see is like this crew of pirates led by this captain is going head to head against this crew of pirates led by this captain and wreaking havoc, and they associate it with that. So Luffy winds up gaining a huge bounty as a pirate, even though, like many other pirates that are out there, he's a pirate, but he's not a bad guy. It's like in what was it, Wreck-It Ralph? He's like, just because you are a bad guy does not mean you have to be a bad guy.
Perfect. It's a really great way to spin it, because, like you mentioned, there are, there's so many great examples that we could get into with that, but obviously there's only so much we can say without being crappy spoiler people. But I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a way. I'll let somebody else go. I don't know how to word this. Because
I wasn't sure where you were going.
I just want to bring up Arlong and why Arlong is so interesting in retrospect, because they do eventually get back to, you know, fish people, and fish people are ridiculously interesting in the world of One Piece. And you not only you have all the thing about Oda. How do I say this? Okay, so racism is real in One Piece, and you got fish people that are treated like crap. You got, you know, in real One Piece, in the actual world, outside of the East Blue, outside of Arlong Park, you do have people that are awful to fish people. So even though Luffy at one point, a fishman almost destroyed his crew and almost drowned him, when he encounters fish people again, he sets all that aside and he's like, "You guys need my help. Here I am." Which to me is just like, it's just yet another example of what makes his morality. It makes he's not a Deadpool type of anti-villain that just says, "I do what I want." He's more of a hero that's just out for what he wants, I guess, because yeah, the government's protecting all these people, and there are consequences for when you mess with the government, but the government also doesn't help the poor and the needy, and Luffy is there for them when they need him.
It's a very, kind of, putting it that way, it's a very Robin Hood type of thing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, actually.
Man, I feel like I'm having more appreciation for a series I already love just talking about it with you guys.
I feel every day. About Luffy.
It's always really cool to return into those like origin volumes of a shonen after you know like a lot of what happens, because then you see all the seeds that were planted.
Yeah.
David says one of the best moments was Luffy trying to figure out which half of the fish people was fish and which was human.
The fish people in this series, though, for anyone who hasn't read or seen any of it, like they're like humanoid fish. They're not like a merman or something where it's like top half person, lower half fish, or even the swap.
There are mermaids, though.
There are, and that's a whole different species. Like there are mermaids who look like that, but then there are fish people, which are basically like Arlong was a sawfish or whatever, a saw-nosed shark. So he's this big, muscular guy with big shark teeth, and he has a long saw-toothed nose. Excuse me. So it's like he looks more humanoid, but he has fish characteristics, and that's the same way. Like there's Hachi, I think is the name of the octopus guy. He has 8 tentacle-like arms, and he has like this sucker-like mouth and stuff. And you have like later on you're introduced to Jinbei, who is a big like whale shark. So he's a huge guy, but he doesn't look like, you know, exactly like a fish or exactly like a whale. He's just a really big dude with like webbed hands and feet and stuff, who has like,
he's like a samurai,
somewhat fish-like characteristics.
A heavy set samurai with blue skin.
Yeah, so it's very different the way that they're presented. So that's kind of adds to the comedic effect of Luffy trying to think about which half of them is human, because it's not really that type of thing.
But that's just typical Luffy.
All right. Well, I think I've got to start wrapping up. It is definitely past my bedtime, as far as not really my bedtime, just past when I was supposed to wrap up the show. So it was my wife kind of coming through and being like, "Hey, it's 30 minutes past 8. What's going on?" I know we started a little bit late though, but it was super exciting, and I definitely ran late because I got excited talking about those early volumes of One Piece again. And I wish I didn't have a million different things to read, because now I would really love to revisit the series. And I hope that this in some way, shape, or form inspired someone out there watching now or watching in the future to give the series a try. If it's been intimidating in the past, jump in, dip your toes in, and I hope you enjoy it and will allow yourself to get to that same level of enjoyment that we have gotten to.
And if you're wondering about the anime and the manga and you haven't experienced either of the two, I do recommend the East Blue special. It's sort of a compilation of the whole East Blue saga. It's with modern animation, so you don't have to worry about the old school stuff. It's in 1080p and all that stuff. So it's a nice little window into the One Piece universe, if you will. See if you like that. If not, you can get the books at our wonderful sponsor, right?
That's right. On IST, you can instocktrades.com. You can order. I believe they should have every single volume plus the 3 boxed sets, which are value priced, and they also have the 3-in-1 volumes, which I think each 3-in-1 is $15. Is that correct?
Maybe
So you could
15 or
get
20, something like that.
No, they're all 15,
15?
and with
Okay.
in stock trades discount, you could probably get 3 volumes. 1 volume that includes 3 single volumes for the price of like 9.
Yeah. So
$9 for 3 volumes.
yeah, like $9 for 3 volumes, and I don't have those, but I do have the 3-in-1s for Yu-Gi-Oh, so I do know that's about the right price that they have them for. So those are the value priced. They're thinner paper, but they're nice looking books. They're value priced. So if you are the type of person that needs it physically, you don't want to read it digitally, that would be a great idea of how to do that. So all the volumes are available, all of the 3-in-1s, all of the individual volumes, and all of 3 of the box sets, which contain about 26 to 27 volumes each, are available via instocktrades.com, where, of course, you can get free shipping with orders of $50 or more, fabulous customer service, great packaging, and pretty much unbeatable prices, especially for brand new books. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining tonight for this impromptu episode of Otakubros, our new name that apparently you guys came up with when I was not on the show last time. Signing off, Gio, where can they find you?
You can find me at A Week in Geekdom, where I talk about anime, manga, comics, and everything else in between. That is A Week in Geekdom.
Adonis, where do you want people to stalk you at?
It's fine.
That is very true. And Nelson, where can they find your pretty mug?
You can find me on YouTube as Sequential Consequence, and you can find me on Facebook. At the farm, always doing some shenanigans.
Awesome. And then you can find me right here pretty much every week on my own channel, Ryleymo, RYLEYMO. Just search Omnibus Collector on YouTube and you'll find some video of me talking about some comic somewhere. And of course, on the Otaku's Farm group on Facebook that we've all mentioned. You can join up there. We have a lot of fun there. It's a very peaceful place, unless you're talking about not liking One Piece, and then all war breaks out. And then the quote unquote main group that everything spun out of, the Omnibus Collectors Comic Swap and Community, is also where you can find me. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Sorry this ran a little bit later. Sorry to myself that I let this run a little bit later than I intended. But again, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad to talk about this series, and I can't wait to do it again. Until next time, peace out, everybody.
Bye-bye.